Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at adding some control joints to your drawings. So if you have a monolithic concrete floor, maybe it's terrazzo, or it's anything that it gets poured in place that is large, say entire building or maybe an entire room that doesn't have anything breaking it up, like a tile patterns, breaking up the tile into individual tiles. So in this case, I have concrete. So you would want to place control joints as a designer, but those control joints, it's important that you think of them as design intentions. Instead of having a very monolithic form, we want to then break it up so it has a kind of more of a scale to a room or a scale to a human body. Um, So what we're going to do is we're going to use model lines. And the beauty of model lines, and you have to, is that they're going to be drawings that are lines that not only show up in the view you're in, but they're actually they'll show up in the in every view. Specifically, we're trying to get them to show up into 3D views. So I'm going to change the lines because you can see I probably don't want a green line. I'll just go ahead and call it out as maybe a thin line. And so it's there. Let's go ahead and repeat it another time. You can see that I'm attaching it to, or aligning it to the structure. And that's on purpose. What I want to do is normally, if your control joint's basically you defining where the concrete or the monolithic material will crack. Okay, it may crack other places, but if you don't do this, it's definitely going to crack somewhere. And what this does is it gives it a natural weak spot. So this would be this control joint's actually cut into the material, usually about a 3/4 an inch to an inch. And it's a groove that's normally about a 1/4 inch wide. And so that allows for a weak point in the concrete then to have that within that 1/4 inch joint that you would often see a crack happen. But nobody will see it because it's below the surface and it aligns with a negative space, a little gap anyway. So that's why we're doing this. And so if we look at your 3D view, we can then see that those model lines right here and here show up. So they start to break up the space a bit into these kind of, I don't know, you can call them cells or portions of the space. So as we are thinking about aligning our design ideas with the structural bay, which is always a good idea, um, you'll these control joints start to align with some intentional moments within your composition. Okay, so now let's go to I'll just repeat this, rinse and repeat a few more times. Other things that I might do is I might look in the other direction. Right here I have kind of seating and kind of one bay, then a middle bay that has all the stairs and this restroom mast, and then I have this shelving and the other. So it might be worth it for me to start to define my control joints, also kind of breaking up this larger cell into smaller pieces. So go back to thin line. If you want to always just have thin line selected, at least for the time being, you just deselect everything, go to model line, go ahead and select that. So now every time I draw until I decide to change it, I'm going to be drawing thin lines. So that's just a helpful hint. All right, let's see if I can't just find a mirror. Okay, that'll work. Okay. All right, so we go back to the 3D view, and the space is breaking up pretty nicely. That looks good. We'll go back to level 1, and I think I need to get this changed out where I'm at it. This has nothing to do with anything. It's just, I think the material is not what I wanted. Okay, so let's look at what happens in Enscape, because unfortunately, this is where I haven't figured out any. I'm working on a solution. Enscape does not recognize model lines. I really wish it did, but it's only going to grab surfaces and render those with material. So it works really well for a lot of things, but apparently we can't get it to go with model lines. So I'm going to see if I can't work out another viable solution. So if we look at it here, we don't see, yeah, we see nothing. No difference in this flooring. Okay. All right, so what I want you to try, and what I'm going to attempt here to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going, just like we created that kind of ceramic tile, I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to call this out as, I don't know, because I'm doing concrete, I'll call this as concrete 1. And I'm going to edit. I'm going to use the concrete I've already labeled, concrete 16, that's fine. Say OK. And then I'm going to duplicate that, call it concrete 2, that's great. Go in here, do this, and concrete, oh no, 2, just duplicate material and assets. And then I'm going to change its tint, or no, not the tint. I'm going to do this, just give it a very slight subtle shift in darkness as if I stained it, and I'll apply that, and let's go ahead and I'm going to create a second floor. Yay. Okay, let's try it. We'll see what happens. All right, let's do just right here, there, and that works. And it's telling me I've got overlap, and that's fine. I apparently did not choose the right floor type. I'm going to go to concrete 2. And just so I know that something happened, I probably should go in and edit this and edit the material that it shows up. Just give it a slight shift. Maybe it wasn't slight enough to show up, but we will now apply a concrete floor, but this time use concrete 1. And we'll do that right here. Okay. All right, so I have that and I have that, and now let's just go ahead and look at Enscape and see what it gives me. Obviously that did not show up, so let's just go in and talk about, so what we're going to do is we're just going to take those floors and we're going to raise them up 1/4 of an inch. So now we hopefully see them. The other thing that I did, oh, not that, is that I'm going to edit this concrete 2 this material, and under appearance, I'm just going to give it a slight tint, a darker gray, somewhere in there. Or I change the graphics appearance so that it'll be a little bit darker. So that's why we see it, at least now, here as a shift. Probably a little too dark, but okay. We see it. Now we go to Enscape and we start to see that there's at least some denotion of, it's not that you would always shift the color for a control joint. This is just to, if there's somehow you want in your design intent to show that it actually is going to be a different color, we would start to, or it could be a different materiality, like we go concrete for the main traffic zone and then maybe a wood flooring for something else. But let's stay on this track of like, how do I show control joints? Because you'll see as we walk through, you know, right now, because we really haven't added the extra flooring, we start to see an outline. And the reason for that is right up here, you see outlines. And you can go to very kind of cartoony, very illustrated. I don't recommend getting that, you know, intense. I would probably keep it around 25 to maybe 20%. And I think what I like about that, oh, I'm noticing my structure is not wrong, is not right. But what I like about that is that it just gives it a little bit of an illustrated look. It stops trying to be photorealistic. And then, but it also, you know, if you do have some subtle shifts of materials kind of turning the corner, it actually kind of clarifies that edge, which I think is good. Okay. So what happens if we kind of continue that thing? This idea kind of continues on and on. So I'm just going to take those two pieces. Let's see, I think this one needs to be built a little bit further. So let's just draw up a few more of these floor objects. Go ahead and call it out at 0.25 or 0.24, 25 inches. And this is when it's going to get a little trickier. So let's concrete to one more. So one more set. Okay, now let's see what happens, because I think we're still going to have an issue. See, because now everything's at the same level. It was showing that line, that outline before, because it changed by 1/4 inch. And you can still see, because right over here we don't have the extra floor, you can start to see the outline still there. So I wouldn't worry between two pieces that are already differentiated by different material or different color. But where we might want to get it is in this scenario. So what I'm going to do, because this is not a shift in material, I'm just going to go in and edit their boundary. Just slightly, just one arrow click, use to both of them. And then let's see if we can't start to see. Okay, yeah, so then that worked out really well. Because there's that little gap, it's kind of denoting it. So we'd want to do that between every piece. So I've just done one click up here and one click down here. And let's just see if that does it, just if I modify one. That gives us the idea. Yeah. Yeah, see, it's pretty subtle, but I think I'm kind of liking that notion. I didn't do it here, so you won't see it right at that place, but it just gives us that recording just very slightly on, and I don't think I want, yeah, I don't want to go any higher as far as the outline, but you'd have to turn the outline on. Otherwise, that pretty much, it's very subtly there, but it's not quite, apparent. There you go. That's how you'd add control joints. A little fussy to get it to show up in Enscape, but may be worth it depending on how critical that becomes part of your design. What I would like you to do is just go ahead and show the nature of that. So we'll see it show up maybe in your sectional perspectives. The notion that you've started to fill in a few of those kind of control joints, so we know that you know how to implement that. All right, great, thanks, guys.